This is day two of kind of a 2-day event. Thinking about the future, because after all, I'm talking to Brian White, who has this, thing about future. He calls himself Future Aza, and that's how you can find him on YouTube and other places. And Brian likes to think about the future. I like to think about the future, and I have become very dedicated recently to trying to get Elon Musk to respond to me, Brian.
Oh no.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's tragic.
because because up until last couple of weeks, I really thought that I understood where we were going in the future with regard to the whole BEV transition to, be automated BEVs being 100% of all vehicles, according to Elon, in the future. I thought it was going to happen by 2029 at the latest. But the other car companies just are not cooperating. They're just not cooperating. And at this point, I don't see how they're going to do it. I don't see how they're going to make it. So I sent off an open letter a couple of days ago. I said, "Hey, Elon, how do you see this transition taking place? What's going to happen in 3 years, 4 years when everybody's going to want an automated BEV and the other car companies can't deliver?" So I haven't heard from him yet.
Oh, well, I just wait. I just hang tight on that. I'm sure he'll give you that and a ticket to all the events that we
That's true.
have been so eagerly refreshing our inboxes awaiting.
All
Uh,
right. Well, in between that, between now and 27, 28, 29, and maybe Elon will answer that, but there's been quite a bit of energy in the press last couple of years, especially the last year. EVs are dead, the EVs, nobody's going to want one. They're all going away. All the companies are cutting back on their production, da, 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 da. All these kind of things are happening. You've unearthed, I think, an article that suggests that maybe American consumers are starting to get a little more interested.
uh, it's possible that I
Okay.
have something like this I can show you. Political influence on electric vehicles interest waning, according to Auto Pacific Study. I made a video about this a couple days ago, but basically what we're finding is that while it was true early on that your political affiliation uh, made you vastly, vastly more likely to buy or not buy an EV, it is becoming less so over time. So the people who are already EV owners, you can see mostly the Democrats, twice as many as Republicans. The people who accept them are still, there's a spread, but it's not as much. And among the people who absolutely reject them, it's gone down. It used to be that Republicans were much less likely to buy an EV, and now they're only a, a fair bit. It's still quite a bit less likely, but not as bad as it was before. So this is good news. This means that people are not tying their political identity to it the way they maybe did early on. But early on, if you'd like me to, would you like me to continue sharing this or stop?
Absolutely. Well,
Oh, sure.
were there,
I
didn't you have more on that from that article? I thought there was more to it than that.
Well, sure. EV rejectors are becoming less concerned about associating their political beliefs. What we're finding is that, according to this study, that the reason people are in red districts are saying, I'm not going to buy one, is they're not saying, I'm not going to buy one because I'm no stinking, bleeding heart tree hugger. They're saying, I'm not going to buy one because I have to tow regularly. I'm not going to buy one because I'm in an apartment and don't have charging, and there aren't enough superchargers where I live. They're saying, um, but I'm not opposed to them.
Hmm.
And this happens because Chevy has what, a dozen different EVs now.
Right.
Ford's got fewer, only a handful, but they're coming along. Dodge is making a Charger with a pure electric drivetrain. All the brands are coming. People who, well, I love my Porsche. Great. Which electric Porsche would you like? Because they're the best cars that they make at the moment, according to me, and I am an authority. I've decided on that, on your opinion on Porsches. So there are uh, it's not a tree hugger car anymore. There's only so many times you can get smoked at the off the line by an EV before you have to acknowledge that these are quick cars. We're seeing racetracks that want to ban them. They say, "Oh, it's because of fire risk." It's not because of fire risk. It's because you're embarrassed by people bringing a bone stock base model car and making your souped up Hemi look ridiculous and asthmatic. So yeah, that's pretty much what I was finding in this article.
And now, wasn't there, I thought there was a final conclusion that only 8% of the people would absolute or are currently still feel that there's no way. There was some
So
other
if we look at this chart, um, the reasons that they're not buying,
right.
and you can pick more than one.
Okay.
Number one is the time to charge is just too long.
I see.
Well, we need a little education there. If you're charging at home, most of the time you never think about how long it takes to charge because it doesn't matter. You sleep at night or during the day. It doesn't matter. There's no place to plug in at home or work. 51%. I think that number is higher than it should be. I think more than half of car buyers do have access to charging at home or work. But I think maybe people think that they need to have a 220, higher speed charger. They don't realize you can just use a wall socket.
Right.
But if you go down the list all the way in dead last place, EVs are not aligned with my political beliefs, 8%. Now that number is still much too high for my taste. EVs are not political. If 8% of people think they're political, those 8% of people have mental issues. But if 92% of buyers are saying it's not even on my list, I'm allowed to pick as many as I want and I still don't put it down. 92%, that tells me we've got some room to improve EV market share.
All right. Now you can stop sharing if you want. So, all right. So if
You really had to milk it out of me there, Randy.
so if we get this transition, in the United States, because it's not a problem in the rest of the world, we get the transition of not being as big a deal as a political issue. We get some less expensive cars into the marketplace in terms of EVs, and it doesn't have to be Teslas, but we do expect a less expensive car shortly. We start then getting into automated cars, which teenagers are already saying, "Hey, I'll take ride hail. I don't, but if you had a 50 cent a mile or $1 a mile ride hail instead of a 250, more teenagers would probably say, I don't even want a car." And then that carry that into their 20s. I mean, all the transitions that we've been talking about all along seem to be moving along towards that conclusion, towards that 100% of humans would want at least an electric vehicle and maybe not a vehicle at all and do all ride hail. Is my conclusion crazy?
Oh, no. One time Tina Fey was hired to make a commercial for, I think, Buick or something like that. And they said, "Okay, Tina, what we need you to do is pull the car up, stop it at this spot, get out, do your line." She goes, "No problem. I can definitely do that." And she pulled up, she got out, and the car kept rolling because, okay, fine. I got to be honest with you guys. I've never driven before. I'm a New York kid. Why would I ever drive? So the idea that you can get by without a car is not crazy at all. Well, a robocab, but I need to move bales of hay. How will I do that? Well, first of all, not in a cab. Is that how you move your bales of hay? If you need a truck, go get a truck. Or like, I would love to have the utility of a truck, but I don't have use for a truck generally. When I need to move something, I will go rent a U-Haul. You know how much cheaper it is to rent a U-Haul for the day? When I was a loan officer, I would take your loan application, list all your assets, and what kind of car do you have? Some people, I don't have a car. Like, you don't have a car. No, I take the bus everywhere. I walk, and if I need to go somewhere, I rent a car. It's so much cheaper to rent a car for a weekend 2, 3 times a year when you need it than it is to, and if you've really, I've got terrible range anxiety, Randy, I must drive 19 hours with only 5 seconds of breaks. Great. Go rent a car. If you're doing that many hours, wouldn't you rather not put those miles on your own car? I used to do that with road trips all the time. I had I had a longevity range in my vehicles, and well, I should. Gas cars love to die around 150,000 miles. So when I would do road trips, I would rent a car because it was a better deal for me in terms of just the depreciation alone.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so you're online. You believe, as we have for years, that this is just a trend that is unstoppable. But then, when I was doing this analysis even a year ago, I was figuring that General Motors would be up to maybe 2 million cars a year by 2027. Ford
So
might be,
were they.
yeah, so were they. Maybe Ford would be at 1.5. Maybe Honda would be at a couple million. I think you did a video the other day about Honda not even being in the game at all at this point.
They really aren't.
And so how are we going to, if we still need 80 million cars a year, and if Tesla, people are now thinking that Tesla won't get to 20 million by the end of the decade. They might, but some people say no. BYD, maybe they could come in with another 15. So maybe 15 for Tesla, 15 for BYD. We're at 30. Who
So
else?
I'm gonna stop you there because we've got too many things to unpack. First,
Okay.
Honda isn't in the game. But what do you mean? The Prologue was number 5 for the quarter. Yeah. Do you know where the Prologue is made? In Mexico, inside the GM factory where they make the Blazer. It's a Blazer. It is a no. It's a Honda. Look at the knobs. It's a GM. Then you said BYD, their numbers are growing, but their EV sales are barely growing. It's their hybrid sales that are growing. They're pushing gas because there are still people who can't get over the mindset. Now, those numbers will grow because it's China and they must grow. It is, a Xi Jinping party is mandatory. You don't opt out of that. So those numbers will grow. And what was the other company you said?
Oh, I think I mentioned Ford. I mentioned else did I mention? I think
Well, at any rate, where are the rest of where's the rest of the EV growth going to come from? We don't know. Oh, and Tesla itself, the 20 million is pretty unlikely for 2030 at this point. And I'd go as far as to say approaching impossible, but even 10 million at this point looks like a struggle because they don't have uh, they don't have the new model coming out. Not yet. They don't have the
they had
factory
they
under
missed the
construction.
they missed a year. So when you're talking about something that's multiplying, if you miss 1 year, it sets your clock back.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was suggested the other day by somebody who, well, actually, Brian Wong might have been the first one to suggest it. And then I saw a video from Lars Strandritter where he was talking about the idea of the product. Elon always said the real product is the factory. So will it be a thing where General Motors, Ford, Toyota, even BYD has to come to Elon and say, Elon, we need you to build a factory. You've got the tech that you have right now from end to end, from the cost to build the factory, from the automation, from the AI within the factory, the special ways that you have the cars self-certify as they're going through the factory, the the castings, the octavalve, I mean, it's just from end to end, we're so far behind. It's just, how can we ever catch up? So would you please build us what you were just talking about in Mexico, a GM factory making a Honda? Is that the future?
I don't know. It's such a complicated machine. The problem is, it's not just that it's a complicated machine, it's not a finished machine. There's no such thing as finished in Tesla. So if they said, yes, we will build you a factory GM and we will give it to you. The day they give it to them, it already needs improvement because all factories do all the time. And then it would be GM making the fixes to it. And as soon as GM starts making the fixes to it, the warranty is void because I don't know what you guys did in there, but it's a mess. So I don't see that being on the near term horizon. Definitely not by 2030, in my view.
And what about Tesla as Foxconn?
Oh, absolutely. That could absolutely happen. I see no reason why. Hey, you want us to just change the hood and bumper on it and call it a Stellantis, I don't know, uh, Dart? Then great. Yeah, I could see them doing that. Uh, And then the question becomes, well, how much would you pay them? You wouldn't have to pay Tesla much because they could spool it up quickly. They've got the capacity. And, but, Stellantis, you don't get the FSD revenue. We do. Well, we don't want that computer in there. It's going to be in there.
Yeah, right.
It's, hey, we can't cut it. It's part of the forward collision avoidance. It's part of the safety package, and it's in there. That's how we get paid.
Or it's a split. If they
Yeah,
got
I mean,
70%, it would be
yeah, we'll give you 10%. That's more margin than you made on the car.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely right. All right. So you can see that kind of a future. That
Mhm.
could be one solution. You're more inclined to think of the Foxconn type of approach rather than building it for them and turning them loose. I mean, you
Yes,
can turn them loose anyway. They'd have to
right.
have a continued relationship.
Yes, exactly. That's what I see. It'd be too complicated to give them a whole factory, and I think both parties would end up unhappy. But a white label car, yeah, they could do that.
Yeah. All right. So that would be a way to solve the problem. So are we on course? So can you imagine a situation where by the end of the decade, virtually no one would want anything but an electric automated car?
I don't know. It's over the horizon.
Oh, you're right. Oh,
You and I had talked in between shows about a day when there's so much demand that new Teslas are once again flying out the door faster than they can be built, and at such a rate that used Teslas begin going back up in value. And I will tell you, that's crazy, Randy. That would make as much sense as going out and buying a pickup truck and then getting a call from the dealership saying, "Hey, I'll give you $5,000 if you bring it back." Because that happened to a buddy of mine. He bought a truck during the pandemic, and they literally called him up and said, "If you bring that truck back, we'll give you $5,000 cash because we got somebody who wants to pay 20 more." Uh,
By the way, it didn't have to be the pandemic. That Volvo that I just finally sold to my son, pretty much the whole time I owned it, I had the dealership calling me and asking to buy it back because they had somebody that was ready to buy it. So that's
hmm.
not unusual. Yeah.
Having worked 1 month at a car dealership, which was the full extent of what my soul would permit, I would caution that that was probably just more of a sales call where they were saying, "We really want your car back. Come in and trade it in on another car. And also, then we're not going to give you a very good deal on your trade in because we're used car salesmen and that's how we operate." Uh,
That is highly possible, except we are also talking about West Los Angeles, where Volvos are the same as, I don't know, sliced bread. It's kind of it's like the car. So anyway, but you might be right. I'm not saying
yeah.
you're
Tough to say. I know we would have salesmen who would go through classified ads and look at people who were selling cars and call them up going, "Are you still selling that?" "Well,
yeah,
I'm at a car dealership. Bring it in. We would like to see it and buy it. What are you buying?" And they would try and sell them a car
sure.
and of course rip them off on their trade-in because they had already mortgaged their souls to, I'm pretty sure, the devil, LLC.
All right, so you brought up let's finish off with that then. You brought up my statement that within months it's possible that Tesla will be selling every car they can possibly get their hands on. And the reason I believe that is because of the amount of publicity that's happening right now with regard to Elon Musk on the national, international stage, and that is going to be continuing. In other words, I think was it you? Somebody this morning posted on X or put something out that was saying, do you think that Elon's face is going to be in the news more or less than it was 2 weeks ago?
I'd speculate more, which is crazy. It's been nonstop, even though he hasn't really said anything since the election. So he doesn't even have to do the work. See,
Yeah.
that's working smarter. And yeah, that's crazy. So the question is, when does FSD become unsupervised?
No, no, my question was, do you
No,
think
no.
at the same
Will the demand become insatiable
before
uh,
that,
before it becomes unsupervised? No.
based on the idea that Elon being out there all the time and being in a new group, a group that hasn't necessarily been his pals, um, you know, you said in your video the other day that part of the reason why the liberals took on Tesla before the conservatives was really because California is a liberal state, and basically California bought all the Teslas in the United States. I mean, it's like 1.4 million out of 1.9 or something. So the Californians are really who bought Teslas, and that could have something to do with the fact that gasoline in California is $5.50 a gallon. And then also because California is what do you call it, a fashion, where fashion starts. So people bought it and it was a fashion, and then other people had to buy it because it was fashionable. So we had.
I don't recall saying any of those things.
No,
I
no,
said,
no. You
I
just said
said,
because of California.
no, I didn't say that either. I said they bought it because it was environmentally friendly, and old hippies love green things. So, but if that means California to you, because there's plenty of old hippies in Oregon and Washington,
Well, Oregon
and
and Washington are right behind California.
yes, we're baby Californias. We're the Canadas of California. So no, the reason I don't think demand could possibly rise that much is because the supply can rise faster. There's idle capacity, there's excess capacity in Texas. I think the more likely reason we would see a supply shortage is because of the changeover to Juniper,
Yeah,
which is going to be a very exciting model. I know a lot of people who own a Model Y who are itching to upgrade to the new one. And I know a number of people, I've seen a number of people, I don't know them personally, who are looking to buy a car and will wait for the Model Y refresh before deciding if they're going to be buying a Tesla or not. And I think that's going to be a big demand driver.
that could also be true in China, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the new hotness. You know how China loves the new hotness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
All right. So one way or the other, we might get a bump here in the next few months in terms of Tesla sales. I'm still, because I'm an advertising guy and been doing this all my life. I just think that Elon being out there as much as he's been out there has to be registering with new people that have never ever thought. It wasn't even a negative. It was like, one of those electric cars, I don't even know what they are. And now with Elon being out there day after day after day. Do you remember when, what was his name? What was the Chrysler guy?
Lee Iacocca.
Iacocca. Yeah, he became the face of Chrysler and sold a lot of cars because of his move.
I think it's hilarious that you would assume that I know who you mean, and I did.
You did, yes. And
Yeah.
you were just a child.
Yeah, I was about 13 when I read his book.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it was a good book.
It was.
Anyway, so I just think that that's going to have an impact. I've asked Troy to monitor it for me, to let me know if he sees a trend in inventory starting to disappear, and or sales starting to pick up in the United States, especially in the flyover states. I'd be interesting to see what happens there.
Yes, it would. He still has me blocked, so I don't know any context to any of that. But Troy, if you're listening, which I know you're not, I miss you, brother.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Let's have a moment.
Because that's what is really good is dead air. Yes, for this radio program, I think we should take a brief 10 moments of silence.
That's right.
What do you do? We can't do this. People will
Oh.
think we're gone.
Even on the day after Veterans Day, you can't do it. Yeah.
No.
Brian,
Mm.
as always, it's been amusing. I'm not sure we learned anything. I have hopefully.
I disagree. In the comments, what did you learn? Because
Yeah.
we talked about all kinds of things. We talked about that. We started with that article showing political affiliation and buying habits. We talked about factories around the world. We talked about all kinds of brands. In the comments, what did you learn?
Please let us know. It's been great, Brian. And for all of you out there, absolutely even better.